Be curious, not judgmental. It's been a labor of love, and it's just been an everyday venture of getting in. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kurkowski. Thank you so much for joining me here. So, all right, it's me and you today. This is a solo episode. Diving into, it's interesting actually on this episode because I had a bunch of stuff I was going to lay out and talk about. But after a conversation I had last week and really doing some more thinking about it, is I wanted to talk about something different. So I'm winging a lot of this today. I know the lesson I talked about last week on the podcast was the more you prepare, the more you can wing it. I'm kind of actually going on the opposite end of that. Sometimes you just got to trust your gut and just roll with it. So it is end of March, getting into early April. And what I realized was at this time in 2008 was when I started my career as a health and fitness professional and getting into this industry. So 15 years this year is a new milestone. And when I realized that, it's a lot of different thoughts came into my mind. And I was speaking with a good friend of mine last week who all of a sudden came to me, and then we started chatting about just kind of the journey of getting here, where I was beforehand and what kind of led me into this field. And yeah, wanted to chat about it. So kind of two things came to my mind when I realized that. One is it was a timeline of 15 years just flashed in my eyes, a lot of different places that I worked, people that I worked with, achievements that I got, milestones that popped up, meeting a lot of new people, traveling to a lot of different places. I mean, all that stuff that, comes just from accumulating 15 years of doing one specific thing. And it was awesome. It was awesome to think about those things. But on the flip side of it, the other thought came to my head is like, oh my gosh, been doing this for 15 years and I've still got so much shit that I want to accomplish. There's still things that I haven't done. Where am I going? And all of a sudden, some of that anxiety and the frantic type thoughts that came to my mind, popped in there as well. So those actually came to my mind first, but from doing a lot of work on myself over the last few years, started to think more objectively and got into a lot of the wins and realized it has been a journey and a half. And I wanted to take you down that a little bit today. Like in all the kind of markers of success, I've checked off a lot of boxes, just doing things for 15 years, putting in the work, starting it, working with it. I built a full-time, business of 40 clients when I was a personal trainer. I built myself off of being, working at a host desk. That was my first job. And I worked myself off of that because I was so busy as a trainer. Then I learned how to be a manager, and I managed a dozen plus people when I had no idea what the hell I was doing at that time. Then I learned how to be a dynamic salesperson. I got into sales training and was the head person at a space for 10 years. Then I learned how to leave that space to, join a friend and build a studio from scratch, then learned how to build an online. I mean, all these things just came down to the line. And when you kind of realize these things, I think sometimes when you look at all these, achievements and successes, if you look at them kind of linearly on a timetable, it looks like everything is very programmed out. Like, oh yeah, this was the next logical step. Oh yeah. And then, worked on this, then worked on this, then worked on this. And sometimes you can think like, oh, in those moments, like you thought once one thing was accomplished, oh yeah, now the next logical thing is we're going to work on this. When in reality, like so much of the things that I've done over this time is just kind of by happenstance, just working at it every day. And then as things popped up, you kind of just rolled with it and you went on. So many things over the last 15 years is like, I had no idea how things were going to turn out, what it was going to be. And just kind of rolled with it and thought, all right, let's see what happens. I mean, that's how this podcast came about. It started with my former partner, Chris, when we really had nothing to do. We were like, hey, let's start a podcast. Like we had some stuff we wanted to talk about. And we did that with the Breakthrough Secrets podcast, stopped it after a few episodes because we realized we had a lot of other stuff that we needed to put our energy into, got back, started interviewing people, realized it was a freaking blast. And then when we dissolved our partnership and I was starting from scratch again, like, all right, where do I want to put my energy into? And I was like, maybe I'll do a solo podcast. And I'll never forget that too. As soon as I had the first episode in, I was still not sure if I should do this, if I would go down this avenue. And then my first episode that I did with Fabio Zonin, good friend of mine now, love him to death. He's great, great coach and master instructor with Strong First. Like 5 minutes into that conversation, I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. Like, this is where I want to put my energy in, because I loved talking to people. I love communicating people. And it started to make me think about when I got into health and fitness in the beginning, because I came from the restaurant business. I worked in, corporate restaurants, worked at private restaurants. I was a server, I was a bartender, and talking with my buddy kind of about this journey, he said, like, were there any traits back then that you kind of, realized were really big for you? Kind of going into this world. And yeah, I always had the gift to gab. I just always liked talking to people. And I was always just curious about people, like even working as a server. And I had people come and just work in a restaurant. I was curious about the people that were coming in. Who are they? Like, oh, it's a two-top. Okay. Are they married? Are they on a date? Like, what's going on? I would ask them about their lives. All of a sudden, just have little chit chats with people all the time. And then I would do that when I was a bartender. Like, so I'd always just loved talking to people. And when I kind of look back, it's like, if there's any real successes that I've made in my career and my time as a health and fitness professional, it's because I just was always curious about people. So if there's any lesson that you can take out of that, maybe if you're just getting started in a new business, if you're getting started in a new business, maybe you're a new coach that's listening to this and you're kind of working, or even if you're a veteran coach, it's like the thing that I always just kept at the top of my mind was be curious. It's Ted Lasso line, right? Be curious, not judgmental. The famous dart game there. So that was always just kind of what sparked me into doing everything. I was always just curious about whether I could do the next thing or not. So it's an important lesson I just thought was something I wanted to bring out, is like anything that I've done, if you see me at all of like, oh, wow, like he's doing this podcast, if you're a fan of this and you've seen anything that I've done and it's been any type of admiration, no, like most of the things that I've done, I've had no idea what I was getting into. I just decided to do it and then just figured it out as I came down the line. And something a few weeks ago, that when I was in Texas at a summit, I heard talking about from Carrie Campbell, where who we are at the beginning, like there eventually gets to a point where we can't even identify with the person we were before by just doing the work that we need to do for ourselves. So I bring that up of like, I couldn't have imagined when I first got into this, like what a personal trainer was, like what having 40 clients or 50 clients was going to be like. I couldn't even imagine what that was. And then it got to a point where I was working so much and I developed this business where I couldn't even imagine not doing that. Then there was a point where I got to the next level. I couldn't imagine having people work for me, have a dozen trainers working for me and working with them and helping them build up, and managing a 7-figure business and building up to a 7-figure. I couldn't imagine even those numbers in there. Then after a while, it was like I couldn't even imagine not doing it. Then got to a point where I couldn't imagine leaving the place that I was, because I put so much time in, and partnering with a friend at a brand new studio and trying to build that up. Then I couldn't imagine building an online business and seeing any success in that. Then I couldn't even imagine like what doing 150 plus episodes of a podcast would be. Now, like all these things that once were just a figment in the imagination, now is just regular life. And I just couldn't imagine doing anything else. I think that's just a lesson of any type of strength pursuit or venture that we have, is like when we first get into something, like if you've never done it before, yeah, like to imagine what that success or what that whole process is going to be like, if you don't have the full, clear step-by-step vision of that, yeah, then you're probably in the right spot. Just start working on it on a day-by-day basis. And then all of a sudden you get to a point where now you're living it and you can't even imagine what you were doing beforehand. And that's how I feel of my career at 15 years in of what I'm doing here. So it's been an absolute blessing, honestly. Like I still love strength. I love connection more so now than I did when I was 23 years old, like just getting into this business. And like having no idea what this was about. Like I thought like I was going to learn a couple things, and then I was planning on possibly moving back to Boston where I was, and then got into this track and realized like, wow, I was pretty good at this. And I really enjoyed, I really just enjoyed it. I loved what I was doing. It was the biggest blessing that I ever got into, of just going into coaching and working with people. And now I can't imagine doing anything else. So that's how I wanted to go into this episode. It's, kind of a few really, cool milestones here, 150 plus episodes in of the Strength Connection after doing 160 of the Breakthrough Secrets podcast. Met an unbelievable amount of amazing people. Some have become great friends of mine now that I get to connect with on a regular basis. Getting to speak with you, with an audience, and actually, just dive into these things that I'm passionate about and just excited about. And it's such a huge blessing, and I'm just so grateful to do this. It's so awesome. So yeah, I wanted to speak on that for you. So I hope it was valuable, to you. And I hope, you could take a little bit of lessons from this, and, just realizing that it's been a journey of every day, just working on it, and that's some stuff that I'm diving into even more of. And I want to curate this even more and speak about this more, is just the different things that came about in this time. But it's really been just, it's been a labor of love, and it's just been an everyday venture of getting in. And all of a sudden, 15 years in, many, many hours doing what you love. I can't imagine anything more fruitful than that. It's been awesome. So thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you. Love you so much. And I'll talk to you guys on the next one. All right. Peace. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait, go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.